Hello and welcome back to Field Study, an exploration of food and the landscape. You join me today on a beautiful mid-January day and we are going to take a walk around some of my favourite foraging spots to see what is good to eat now in the middle of January. I've got my trusty companion Fern the dog with me today and we're just going to see what we can find. Because if you can forage at this time of year and find delicious things to eat, then you'll be okay. Come on in. Even though it may seem like everything is dead and hibernating for the winter, there is plenty out there to see, eat and look at. So we're going to have a lovely walk today in the Great British countryside. I also think it's a very important thing at this time of year to fight your instinct to cover yourself up in a duvet and hibernate and watch copious amounts of trashy TV. It is important to get outside and witness everything as the season changes, and all those micro changes that happen at this time of year that if you aren't willing and brave enough to go out and witness them, you'll miss completely. So here in this valley on the edge of the village, we have this sort of limestone cliff face, and it's a really small cliff face. We used to climb this when we were children. But on the cliff face is growing one of my favourite plants of all time. So this beautifully fluffy plant that we have here with these really thick, fuzzy leaves, and they really are fuzzy, is mullen in its first stage of growth. And this is a very important plant for the pollinators. You'll find it at different times of year, covered in all sorts of other insects. It is the food plant of the mullen moth, which is absolutely beautiful, a lovely moth that we have here in the UK. It will have these huge flower spikes on that are usually yellow, and it will be absolutely teeming with life. And in around about May time, when the cockchafers start to emerge, it will be buzzing and teeming with them. They're them little beetles that hum about the place and sort of batter you in the head if you're out walking. And often get them caught in our moth traps because they too are attracted to the light. But yeah, they love this plant as well. There are various human uses of this plant. People have used it as an expectorant for sort of like getting rid of mucus in the lungs. I haven't used it for that purpose myself. And another use that you'll find in all the survival books, lots of the plant lore books out there, is that this makes a good toilet paper. But I would advise against it. The sap has a chemical in it which can be irritant to some people. And the last thing you want, especially if you're spending days out in the woods and haven't brought any toilet paper with you, if you're in that sort of scenario, is to have discomfort anywhere near that area. So I'd probably advise against using it as toilet paper. But it's a beautiful plant. And it is very nice from a textural point of view. So if you find mullen, then rub it between your fingers and you know what I mean. It's sort of like cotton. It's beautiful. Good rock. Come on then, good girl, let's go. Down here on the ground is another plant that you'll see emerging at this time of year. Now this is a plant in the buttercup family, so it's a ranunculus. It's called Lesser Celandine, and it is edible. So lots of species in the buttercup family are inedible and are actually toxic, and that is to be looked out for. But this is one of the ones at this time of year that is relatively easy to identify, and it is non-toxic when it is cooked. Now there's a chemical compound in ranunculuses in the buttercup family that is the toxin, and it is degraded by heat and dehydration. So by cooking or dehydrating the leaves of this plant, you can get rid of that chemical and make it safe for consumption. And it is a lovely little green to have at this time of year. It grows in these clumps, these rosettes on the ground, and you'll see the leaves have this lovely sort of hoof, heart shape, and they've got this sort of lighter coloured speckled, this spotting on the outside of it. In a few weeks' time, when this begins to flower, it will have a beautiful yellow buttercup-like flower. Like I say, you'll find some places on the internet saying that you can eat these leaves raw. Completely disregard that. It is unsafe to do so, and if you eat enough of it, you could make yourself really ill. So it is best to cook these. In fact, you can eat the root. Underneath here, there is a root structure of little nodules. And they're like pea-sized little nodules, and they can be eaten as well if they are cooked. But as with all plants in the UK, it is illegal to uproot them without landowners' permission. And the roots are so small that you'd have to dig up a fair few plants in order to get a good feed. So probably best to just leave them where they are unless you're incredibly hungry. So the purpose of today's video is just to show you guys what is out there at the moment. This is by no means an in-depth identification video. I will put links to loads and loads of resources, identification of all these plants that we're talking about, and links to books and references that you can learn from in the description below. So if this at all piques your curiosity, then head there and learn about these plants in depth, because as with all things, foraging is a discipline. So the more information you know, the safer you can keep yourself. And that's a fantastic thing. It's meant to get down to -2 here tonight. -2 may not sound very cold to some of you out there, but down here on the Isle of Wight, where we're really down south in the UK, that is quite a cold night here. And in fact, they keep on saying that we might get snow in the next couple of days, which is very rare, because usually because of the way the land falls, the snow passes over us and then dumps, usually near Winchester or out in East Sussex, depending on the wind direction. So we don't get snow that often, so it's very exciting. So this is another plant that you'll find all along the roadsides and the coastline of Great Britain, and it is Alexander's, or Smum Ostrum. It's not one that I'd recommend for beginner foragers just because of its visual similarity to some highly toxic plants in the UK, some really deadly plants, some of the most deadly plants that we have here actually. And this is in the same family, the carrot family, as things like hemlock water dropwort. It's got these beautiful glossy leaves and it is absolutely delicious. It's one of my favourite things at this time of year, one of my favourite greens. I think the best time to learn how to identify this plant is when it's in flower and when it's slightly more mature. So maybe wait a few weeks, 4 weeks, a month or so, depending on where you are in the country. And then set to work teaching yourself the identification clues on how to identify Alexanders. You won't regret it. It's one of my favourite plants, vegetables of all time. It is delicious and there's nothing that has a sort of similar taste. It is a particularly welcome ingredient at this time of year. You'll see in the books that people say that it's mainly a coastal plant, but I have found it growing absolutely everywhere, especially in the south of the UK. It's one of them ones that it's sort of like semi-urban edgelands. It likes places that have been gritted, like the edges of roads and motorways and tracks and stuff like that. And yeah, it grows in great abundance. It's not technically a native plant to the UK. It was introduced by the Romans as a potherb and also as fodder for their horses. They used to feed their horses on it. But it's one of them plants that has a really rich human history. We've been involved with it for thousands of years. And it's only relatively recently that we stopped growing it in our gardens as a vegetable. I think all the way up until the Industrial Revolution there is documented evidence that we were growing it in our vegetable gardens. I think it's only when celery came in, which is related to this but has a milder flavour, that this sort of fell out of fashion a little bit. But I really like the intensity of the flavour of this. It's sort of like black pepper, citrus peel, hops. It's got like a really aromatic flavour, which goes well with so many different things. We're definitely going to be doing some more recipes as the season goes on, because I cannot wait to get out here and cook this year. That is my one of my New Year's resolutions, more cooking videos out here in the beauty of the village that I live in. It's one of them things that self-seeds really readily. All of these are little baby Alexander's plants. How cute are they? So this here is another one of my favourite plants, and this is Pennywort. Has these beautiful, succulent, disc-shaped leaves that are really, really distinctive. It's beautiful. It's crunchy, it's succulent. At this time of year it's really cold and refreshing. And it's got sort of like a really mild, cucumbery, sort of geranium leaf thing going on as well. And it is absolutely beautiful in a salad. This is another beautiful thing to see at this time of year. This is honesty, and I wouldn't actually expect this to be out just yet. So honesty is a member of the Brassica family. We can tell because it's got these beautiful cruciform 4-petaled flowers. Usually have a really distinctive seed pod, and the honesty plant is no different. It's known as the moonflower in certain parts because of these big disc-shaped seed pods. And they contain the seed on the inside. You can see those little bumps where the seed's sort of forming. And they've got a beautifully sort of peppery flavour. So that's a really good thing to see. I'm not going to pick any at the moment because it is literally the only one. And it's really, really early. So the bees, when they finally emerge in a couple of weeks, will probably be grateful to see that, if it doesn't get killed off by the frost that we're going to be getting tonight. But yeah, a good one to see. So once again, thank you very much for watching. That is all we've got time for this week. I just wanted to do a sort of, what are you doing with this paw? I just wanted to do a sort of reconnaissance mission out of some of my spots here in the village, and just to see the progress of everything. And I mean, if this cold snap that we're getting in a couple of days doesn't kill everything off, I mean, we could be on to a good steady descent into spring, which is making me very happy. Like I say, if you're at all curious and want to learn more about identifying wild edible plants, then please check out the description below. There are so many resources down there. I add to it every single week, and yeah, it's just a good place to go if you want to know more about plant uses and how to identify them. So check that out. So I'll be back next week with another foraging video. Next week we're going to go out and we're going to pick some delicious wild food, and then we are going to cook it somewhere beautiful. That is the plan anyway. So you can look forward to that. So there we go. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button and hit subscribe for more foraging videos from this beautiful landscape. Until next week, take care. Bye.